Garry's Mod would quite literally be nothing without custom maps. Whether it's an entirely original piece of work or a port of a map from another game, Garry's Mod is home to some legendary ass maps. So much so that it's not even a surprise at this point seeing maps that were once GMOD originals end up ported over to other big name titles. There's maps like Free Space, Construct, Big City, and Mobinix, just to name a few, that are distinctly Garry's Mod in nature. They're clearly tailor-made for GMOD, and most Source Engine fans would be able to look at them and tell you exactly what game they're from. While these maps are truly great and legendary in their own right, there's a subsection of Garry's Mod map that I enjoy a lot more. Maps that are based off of mundane real-life places and businesses, McDonald's, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut. There's something so charming about a place you're familiar with being rendered out in Gmod for you and your friends to play on. But out of all of Gmod's seemingly infinite pool of user-generated maps, there's one sandbox map that I think is perfect for multiplayer sandbox. GM711. Now, not to be cliche here, but GM711 is pretty much exactly what it sounds like, right? It's a sandbox map for Gmod, featuring a big-ass 7-Eleven as the main set piece. The version on the Steam Workshop was uploaded in 2012, but I've seen people claiming they've been playing this map since 2010, so I don't know. Either way, it's safe to say this map is more than 10 years old, which is old. In the way of history, I do wish I had more information about it, but it seems most of it has been lost to the annals of time, which sucks. With that out of the way though, let's start a little showcase and walkthrough of GM711. Immediately upon loading in the GM711, you'll notice that you are in fact not inside of a 7-Eleven, but rather a dark, rugged room with only a couple of light sources. This area serves as a proper spawn room, which isn't something you really see in a lot of Gmod sandbox maps. In fact, it's not something you see in Gmod maps at all, really. It's a weird choice. But it serves as a nice starting point and immediately tells you who's behind this map. Vamp. The outside of the spawn building is as basic as it gets. Some default Gmod textures, really simple geometry, and some nice little windows to watch your friends spawn in after you blow their head off with a crossbow. But as simple as it is, it serves as the perfect transitory space between spawn and the outside. And speaking of outside, let's talk about the outside. Right outside of spawn, there's a pool. Now, logistically, does this make any sense? No. Is it cool? Yeah. Flying above it and catching at the right angle, you'll notice a large 7-Eleven logo painted onto the bottom. As far as pools go in Gmod, this is also pretty simple, and logistically doesn't really make sense for a 7-Eleven map, but I like it. It's cool. Heading on over across the pond, we come to a soccer field with 2 goals. Admittedly, this is also a very basic landmark that has little to nothing to do with the theme of the map, but there's a sort of nostalgic charm that comes with it. It's unapologetically amateur, but that's where a lot of the fun comes from. You have to invent your own fun with these sort of things, and that's the fun part. Right across from this amateur-ass field, you'll notice a building in the distance. A building that, ironically, is a lot bigger than the building this map is named after. It almost appears to be some sort of train station. The train station, despite being the largest landmark on this map, probably leaves me with the least to say. There is no train, the architecture of the building is very similar to the spawn building, and it is very, very dark. Despite its size, it's easily the most boring part of this map, and I'd wager to say most people rarely visit this area. It's just way too far from everything else. But, with all the outside landmarks covered, let's move on to the real meat and potatoes of GM711. Inside of the 7-Eleven. As you're walking into the 7-Eleven, you'll notice this beautiful sign and a well-designed parking lot. The craftsmanship put into just the outside of the 7-Eleven is almost jarring when compared to the simple nature of the spawn room in the train station. But I digress. Heading into 7-Eleven, you'll notice an abundance of Domo branding and real-life advertisements. For those unfamiliar, Domo is a Japanese mascot for NHK, a Japanese television broadcasting company. At first glance, it seems really weird for the mapper to combine Domo and 7-Eleven, and I honestly thought he just did it for fun or something, but 7-Eleven and Domo really did collaborate in a Japanese-only marketing campaign.
What? Fill them with Fanta Wild Cherry or the limited time only Fuji Frost, only at 7-Eleven stores.
As for why the mapper chose to include such heavy Domo branding, my best guess is the Nicktoons show Domo TV that came out in the United States just before this map was created. This was my and a lot of people's first exposure to Domo, and for like a year or two in the States, this little funky Japanese guy was everywhere, even next to SpongeBob. Or maybe the mapper is just Japanese, fucking, I don't know. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked talking about Domo, where were we? The interior of the 7-Eleven is pretty nicely made. I wouldn't go as far as to say it actually looks like a real 7-Eleven, but it's the most detailed part of the map by far. Clearly, a lot of work was put into making this very square building's interior feel less than square. I think the sliding doors are a nice touch too. Too often in maps like these do people just opt for a janky Half-Life 2 door, completely taking you out of the map. There's not much in the way of props, but I suppose you can just fill it up yourself if you want to. The red trim is also a nice touch, I think. Despite how simple it is, it actually adds a lot. Also, this thing spins. Whee! Well, that's it for the interior. Oh, except for this elevator, which leads to, where does this lead to? Because this is an amateur map from the early 2010s, there has to be a scary-ass dark room. This room is poorly lit, and there's a huge trail of blood coming from the janky elevator. Immediately upon walking out, you'll be greeted by piercing red eyes. Pretty scary at first, right? But worry not. They're just lights that blink periodically. This whole basement area is actually kind of well made, as ill-fitting as it is. Ironically, the scariest part of this whole area to me isn't the spooky red eyes, it's this room. Some sort of bunker with grimy walls and gross yellow lighting, as well as a TV in the corner. I guess this is supposed to imply some sort of security room. The vibe of this room is very liminal space, only this was made about 10 years before anybody would ever even utter those words, so... And that's just about all there is to GM711. For how amateur this map is and how scatterbrained the landmarks are, it's amazing that this map plays so good in multiplayer sandbox. GM Construct will always be fun, but for me, GM711 might as well be the default map for when I want to play sandbox with my friends. There's something so appealing about maps this amateur. Not to say there wasn't hard work put into this map, but the roughness around the edges is part of the allure. If this map were professionally made, it wouldn't have the staying power that it's had, I don't think. GM711 has a lot of things, but unfun is not one of them. I hope you enjoyed this little tour of GM711, and I hope to see this map played on for another 10 years, another 20 years. Play GM711 forever. Thanks for watching, and I've been Ratlobber. I've been Shang Shuli. Bye.
America, you don't have to run out of milk.
If it's not around the house, it's just around the corner.
Having a 7-Eleven store in the neighborhood is just like having your own refrigerator full up with cold, fresh milk. Right on the price, right around the corner, right there where you need it. Oh, thank heaven for 7-Eleven, your neighborhood dairy store.
If it's not around